story that is about to be told is for both the young developer and the old. Whether you use custom graphics or runtime package for tile mapping gore and errors in setting passage, a spooky episode this is, oh yes, of horror, scares, and RPG Maker VX. Let your mind be terrified by fear of procrastination, bad battles, and puzzles that test your gamer's patience, of darkness that hardly lets you see any of the map, and development milestones that are way off track, with walking speeds that couldn't be slower. Buckle your seatbelts. It's RPG Maker Cola.
Welcome to the RPG Maker Cola podcast. I am your host Cash, also known as CashmereCat, also known as the Puzzle Snob, and this is the place for you. It's a chill space where we get together skilled developers from the RPG Maker community to chat cordially and occasionally non-cordially about game development, game design, and probably a whole bunch of unrelated other stuff too. It's casual, it's cool, it's cola. This is the spooky Halloween month, and if we're releasing this in time, I've been picking two fantastic guests who are well versed in the RPG Maker horror genre, both by experiencing it and developing in it. These fine experienced developers are going to introduce themselves to us, but I'd like to start with the developer who has made numerous RPG Maker projects on teams of the fabulous Opera House puzzle RPG Abyssal of the Opera, collaborated with the fantastic Marak on the short comedic dungeon crawler The Misadventures of a Fae, The Three Palantirs, Hollow Project, Dry Fate, Fragments of Mind, and Memories of a Forgotten Home. His solo projects include the RPGmaker.net community love letter RMN Christmas Card 2017, short horror game and self-proclaimed walking simulator Dolorific A House, and the horror game parody Gathering on Halloween Night to Summon. This developer creates a lot of games, usually short ones, but always with a unique sense of humor and a penchant for horror that unpredictably combines with comedy for often dazzling results. To list a few, Babashook the Game, Bloody Trip, and parody game Three Ghostly Noses. Not all games are meant to be ultra serious, but hey, this developer recognizes the power of good comedy to elevate serious material. My two favorite games by this developer are the exploration-based horror adventure whose story is set on a flight of stairs, it's named 100 Floors, and a buzzy, surreal horror comedy game that's utterly hilarious and short and at the same time meaningful called Two Strangers Sat in a Garden. Perhaps most importantly, they are currently developing a remake of one of their first games, Akane. It's Frogge.
Hi everyone, it's me. I'm not Frogge, I'm JosephSeraph. Hi.
Oh Lord.
No, it's me. It's Frogge. It's Frogge with the bad humor, and I'm very happy to be here.
I'll take a quick break from Frogge's description to introduce us to our second developer. I have worked on teams very closely with this person, and they're a great friend of mine. Author of Resonate Call Out My Name, an Indie Game Maker Contest 2015 entry that dazzled many with its custom art and entirely unique aesthetic and systems. The opening scene alone sets one of my favorite opening atmospheres of an RPG Maker game without question. Creator of VX games such as the sunny, dungeony Brave Tier and a pure front-view dungeon crawler made in VX called Lacrimosa, as well as in a plethora of other engines, this developer places great emphasis on creating atmospheres using custom graphics, music, and unique systems that combine nostalgic elements with modern ones. We've worked together alongside a third developer, Cappage, on a sprawling, largely confused, and buggy, yet utterly enthralling game, in my humble opinion, called Our Desolate Planet, which got a positive review from Horror Master Calunio, which is all I need frankly, and is currently working on a fantastic looking hybrid between a DRPG and a side-scrolling exploration game with rendered backgrounds reminiscent of early PS1 titles and 3D dungeon exploration. This is JosephSeraph.
Hi there. It's fun to hear someone talk about my work like that, because it's different from what I think of myself, but thanks.
Who am I? I am a horror game RPG Maker developer. I enjoy horror and comedy, as Cash has so humbly explained, and I discovered RPG making from a Let's Play I watched years back. It was from PewDiePie, I think. It was a Let's Play of Sao, and I instantly fell in love with it. I was really scared of horror games back then, and I figured this is like the kind of horror game that's not too scary and I can actually enjoy. And I immediately grew an interest in it, and I just kind of spiraled from there, started making my own. Just creating things and putting them out there, I think, for people to enjoy is what really drives me the most.
Yeah, and the spiral continues, it's just like a downward spiral, just keeps on going. You just get stuck in it.
Yeah, it keeps on driving me insane.
Right. I'm Brazilian. I'm 24 years old. My mother is a tattoo artist, and the reason I'm mentioning my mother is because she is a big nerd, and when I was 4 to 5 years old, she would play video games, and I would be on her lap playing video games with her, and she got me into Final Fantasy VII, and she bought RPG Maker for herself. Like, before I was 10, actually. Yeah. And she couldn't really use the program, so she just threw it away. But I was, no, Mom, I want that. And then I got it for myself. My very first project was a remake of Parasite Eve when I was 11, because my disc of Parasite Eve broke. Of course, it was very bad, but it's fun. I remember that very fondly. And yeah, I've been playing around with RPG Maker ever since, and I love RPGs and horror games, and it's very hard to describe myself in words or other than that. I've been playing around with RPG Maker a lot, but I haven't actually finished a lot of projects, which is a feeling I guess a few of you can relate, but yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Not the ones here, because you finished a lot of stuff, right? Especially Frogge, you finished, like, the list was immense.
Well, they were like 5 minutes long each, so I wouldn't consider it a huge accomplishment.
I think the struggle to make lengthy games is one that so many share. The very fact that some of us are still trying and some succeeding to make games that are lengthy but also good quality is just so brilliant to see.
Yeah, this is beautiful about the RPG Maker community.
And that's interesting. I don't think I've heard a story about coming to know RPG Maker from a person who's one of their parents found the game, wanted to play it, and then discarded the cartridge, and you're just like, no, that's mine, So we're going to transition to our next segment, the Buzz Corner. Maybe a theme song goes here, maybe it doesn't, maybe I'm just making a fool of myself. Here we talk about what RPG Maker games are gaining buzz at the moment. If you can think of a game, bring one game to talk about you're pretty interested in. And my game is Beloved Rapture. Beloved Rapture is a game headed by Blind Mind, if I'm correct, that takes place amidst an epic conflict, though its heart is more deeply concerned with the intimate human relationships of its characters. Personal interpersonal stories take center stage. Existentialism, spirituality, family trauma, LGBT themes, and friendship are all important elements of the story. This game has been in development for a long time. It's almost like ingrained in the DNA of RPGmaker.net as a website, because it's one of the first games to be hosted on there, and it's still being developed today. It's been developed for so long, gone through so many iterations. I admire the tenacity with which the author Blind goes through it, and the screenshots are actually starting to look really gorgeous, and there's so much work being done within the past 1 or 2 years that I'm just so impressed with. Successful Kickstarter for an RPG Maker game, which is brilliant. 16,800 pledged over 12,500 goals. So congrats to Blind and the team, of which I just learned today that Joseph is doing a little bit here and there. So
I'm helping a little bit, just a little bit. Yeah.
I'm really proud of the RPG Maker success that has come through this game, and I'm really looking forward to the finished product.
Yeah, I'm also very proud of this. I just wanted to echo all of your sentiments. It's such a gorgeous project, and it's a work of love, and you can see it overflowing. And it's not every project that survives for so long.
Yeah.
Usually it would be on a shelf thrown away at some old dilapidated house in your heart, But no, this one is just given life and form, and it's beautiful. And I am always happy to see a successful RPG Maker Kickstarter also, because there is a history of failure and stigma, and games that challenge that make me very happy.
Yeah. This game has been in development since 2007. 12 years. It's a long time.
Yeah. That everything you guys just said.
It's only within the last year that so much progress has been made. It's amazing. How about another project? What are you guys interested in?
Yeah, sure. So it's a game that's already been released. It's been quite popular at the moment. It's Will Noir. I played it, and it's really, really good. I haven't played many of the major RPG releases this year, but I think Will Noir for me did more than enough. It was a very good story. It was absolutely gorgeous, and it's also been in development for like a very long time now. And it was so nice to see it finally completed this year. I was absolutely blown away by it, honestly. I think it's well worth playing.
Will Noir has also been in a extremely long development process since 2008 by one of our very own, Little Wing Guy. And yeah, it captures the heart of a SNES RPG. It looks brilliant. I haven't got around to playing it, but it's one of those ones that captures old school vibes, but also it's very well polished as well. So I'd like to try this. Looks great.
Yeah, it definitely feels very familiar in a way. It's like a lot of the things in it are very fresh and very original, but at the same time, it's very similar to a lot of things you've probably played, but in like a good way. It feels like home, you know?
Mm-hmm. Brilliant.
It's fun that it's also another RM 2003 game, and it just shows so much polish, and I'm always happy to see a game that experiments with gameplay, as in evented systems. I love evented systems that are well crafted and a labor of love, and I'm very excited about it. I haven't got to play it around either. You're gonna find it a common theme throughout this podcast, me talking about my not having played anything pretty much in the last few centuries. But yeah, I'm looking forward to it also. It just looks amazing.
Brilliant. Joe, what is your game?
Yeah, I'm gonna mention Weird and Unfortunate Things Are Happening by Unity, which is a game that I had played the demo way back then when it first released, and I'm pretty sure they had a recent new release, but I'm not up to date yet. I haven't played the new version, but the first version that I played back then was fun. The characters were lovely. It's by Unity, but it also features art by Makio, by Rodin, by Suze, and I also did a few animations here and there, but not really a lot. It's not a part of the art team. And it's so fun. Everything that Unity does is amazing. So I beckon everyone to check out this game. And now that it's nearing completion or completed, I think it's nearing completion. I'm not sure if it's completed yet.
Nearing completion, yeah.
But yeah, it's great. And please, everyone support Unity. Her work is amazing. And yeah, I love this so much.
It is amazing. I have played about an hour of this game, and so far, it's just like every other Unity game I've played in that it's high quality, great custom art, and every aspect of the game has some thought put into it. So the pacing is nice, you've got good characters, it's a great amount of polish put into it. I think hopefully this might be Unity's best game yet. Like you said, it's got some great portraits by Makio Rodin's and other graphics that have been kind of mushed together because this is a game that takes place in a metaphorical collision of worlds, and maybe even literal. But yeah, it's brilliant. I love how weird and fortunate this game is.
Yeah, it's also always lovely to see how Makio manages to interpret and just give so much personality to the characters that Unity and Suze write. It's just great. I love it.
Exactly.
I'm here for it.
Yeah. We'll transition smoothly to our next segment. We've been playing games. Maybe? I have been playing Don't Starve Together. Don't Starve Together is a standalone multiplayer expansion of the uncompromising wilderness survival game Don't Starve. You enter a strange and unexplored world full of strange creatures, dangers, and surprises. Gather resources to craft items and structures that match your survival style. Play your way as you unravel the mysteries of the strange, and you can cooperate your friends in a private game or take chances with strangers online. This game is really fun, but it can be so brutal. To like survive long term in this game, there's so many ways that you can lock yourself out, and I played this with sometimes 3 or 4 friends at once, and you survive together, and even still with that amount of people, it can be quite difficult to survive against the monsters and the harsh constraints of the land. After a while, it did start to get quite frustrating, but there's plenty of mods to keep things fresh. The art style is, and it's just one of those survival games. Not many survival games have the depth of content required to keep someone satisfied for a long period of time, but I've been satisfied for a long time with this game.
I haven't played this game yet, but a lot of my friends play it, and it does seem very interesting. I'm always invited to play it, but you know, I'm so stressed about so many things to do that I just end up declining. But yeah, it's fun. It's very interesting. I want to play it. The art style is also so neat. The last game that I've played recently, which was like 2 months ago, maybe 4 months ago, was The Frozen World by Alessander, and it's just a stellar game. It's one of the older RPG Maker games, like from, I don't know, maybe 2007, 2003, 2005, from around that time, and it's just so good. It's about this girl that she doesn't really have a memory, and that already sounds very original, right? But it is very fun. It's fun. It has an original gameplay system in which you have to equip plates in your characters, and the slot in which you equip the plates make their effect different, and then there's a lot of resource management, and the plot. And the reason I'm not going to go into the plot is because it's so easy to spoil.
Yeah.
But it's got a really fun twist through the end, and the characters are very surprisingly endearing. Like, from the beginning, I thought I wouldn't care about them, but I found myself crying, and I'm very cynical about games. It's very hard that I attach myself to characters to the point that I cry. So it's a really fun game. It serves on a lot of sides. It is, of course, a bit dated, because it's from it's a relic from another time, but it's really fun to see the quote dated quote way that the developer made the systems work.
Yeah,
way before people even dreamt about having scripting. Yeah, so good.
The spoiler is that the world is frozen, I think, but they kind of spoil it with the title.
I mean, yeah.
The Frozen World, you know,
Kinda.
It's like, well, you could have chosen a different title. And this is from Lysander86, who also created A Blurred Line, which is like the godfather of RPG Maker games to many people. Many people consider A Blurred Line, like, it's on a lot of people's radar for best RPG Maker game of all time. Not everyone will agree on that, but I think a lot of people place it very highly. So Frozen World is another maybe deep cut, not so deep cut, but something that not everyone might have played. So go check it out.
I guess we could say that whether or not it's the best RPG Maker game of all time is kind of a blurred line.
Oh,
Right.
Okay, well, I'm moving on from that terrible pun to talk about... I've mostly been playing Minecraft these days, and I've also been playing Mario Maker 2, they're both amazing games. You don't really need me to tell you that. I think plenty of people have already given them the tremendous praise they deserve, and so I think I'm going to be talking about the last game I played on the site, which was a very recent one. It was from the developer's hard drive, I think, and it's been sitting there for years, and they just decided to release it this year, and I'm really glad they did. It's called Dead Again. It's currently featured on the RPG Maker Net front page, and it's a very short game. It has multiple endings, but you can beat each route in like 2 minutes to 10 minutes. It's very unique. It's got a lot of non-linear systems. It's got a lot of secrets, which I always love in games. It's a zombie game, which kind of drove me away at first, but I think they handled it really, really well. It's focused less on the zombies and more on, like, the apocalypse aspect. You know, there's, like, dangers of, like, nuking the town or whatever, and I think it's not, like, a huge title, but as far as games that are, like, an hour in length go, I think it's a really noteworthy release, and I genuinely highly recommend that one as well.
Yeah, these screenshots look amazing. I'm just going to post one in chat. Frogge's also created a review for this game, and this game was created in a month, working 12 hours a day, every day, non-stop. It's got a lot of custom art and a lot of polish. This person, they put a lot of detail into the art for this game as well, the style that they've kind of employed. And I would really like to try this game. It's also one of those horror games that also has a turn-based battle system, which is something we're going to discuss later. But yeah, it looks really interesting to me.
Yeah, and I think it wasn't just the art as well. Like, it's... For a game that was made in under a month, it's extremely well polished, like so surprisingly well polished, and I was completely blown away by like how good it was for something that was just made in 1 month. It's kind of like a IGMC game, except, you know, it definitely had more time that went into it because it was much more polished than the usual IGMC release.
Well, the thing is, it's made within 1 month, so if it was made for the IGMC, it would have been possible.
Qualify, yeah.
Yeah, it definitely would be. I think it would have been a really great contender. I think it would have made it in like the top 10 at the very least because it's really good.
We've all talked about games that we've played, and now we're just going to talk about, in our next segment, topics to discuss, because this is a podcast and it's serious. Here we're just going to ask some questions about horror games, but first we'll ask a couple questions about our developers we're meeting up with. What is your specific method for creating a game? Say you start from the beginning, you've got a blank slate, you just kind of sit down. How do you get inspiration? What inspires you? And then where do you go from there?
Method?
Yeah.
You think I have a method? No, kidding, just kidding. Yeah. Right, I kind of do. Do you want to start though, Frogge?
No, I actually don't have a method either, so I'm pretty much lost on this, but I want to say that I usually, as far as the development itself goes, I usually start with the maps, because I generally tend to have a clear idea of what I want the game to look like, which generally is what drives me when making the game, is like, I want it to look a specific way and feel a specific way. So to me, the visuals are one of the most important things that I immediately try to get out of the way. As far as the general process of making the game goes, I think I like to start with writing first, and I like to try to get a script done before I start working on the game, which I always fail at. I've never managed to finish a script before starting a game in RPG Maker itself. I like to either write or map for when I have a blank slate in front of me.
Yeah, and sometimes in the process of creating a map or writing some fragments down, this is what I find anyway, I come to an inspiration about something and start creating from there, or I just put a mess of tiles down and then just say, this is a mess, I don't even know how to put this all together, and then abandon it.
Yeah, that's pretty much how it goes.
Dude, yeah, I have so many of those.
I think it's also very healthy to appreciate that sometimes you won't have inspiration, even if you try, but that's okay. You can just come back to it later. Don't feel like the fact that you can't drum up ideas on the fly doesn't mean you can be a good developer. Inspiration comes in waves. Sometimes you have to write it when it comes, and then when it doesn't come, you just have to kind of just explore a bit and be okay with failing.
And if you aren't inspired, just copy. That is extremely fine.
Yeah.
Huh. That's a topic for another discussion, but yeah. As for my method, there's this thing that I like to do when I'm working by myself, which I haven't been lately, which is another topic. I usually start by creating mockups within GraphicsGale, which is my pixel art editor of choice, and I then just create different frames for different aspects of the game and different layers for different layers of that aspect. So, for example, one of the frames is dedicated to the battle system, and then I create a layer with some ideas for items and a layer for some ideas for this and that, and then another frames for the characters. And when it starts to get more complex, then I start to make a file for characters, then a file for gameplay, and it's kind of like that. It works. It helps me. This way I have a lot of projects that I can just go back to and understand where I stopped them, but I really don't take them much further, right? And now that I've been working on Records in Blue with Heirukchi, our development process has been a lot different and way more detailed, because he is sort of our manager. He is kind of in charge. I mean, the original idea for the game was mine, but he took it and run with it, and he's in charge of making sure that everything works. And really, it's kind of amazing that I'm working with such a person, because when I'm by myself, I am such a mess. And so we have these weekly meetings. And
relatable.
Yeah.
Need someone to kick you up behind once in a while.
But it's so good when you finally find someone that has the patience for that, because working with me requires a bit of patience, unfortunately. But yeah, it's been great, and we have a very kind of strict but very productive schedule for things. It's great. It's amazing.
When working with you and Cabbage on Our Desert Planet, I probably could not think of 3 more eccentric personalities to collide on one game at any one time. Probably if Frogge joined us, then it would be like the maximum chaotic.
Yeah, it'd just be chaos. Pandora's box would be opened.
But it was brilliant chaos. Not everything was positive, but there was also a lot that was positive about it. Like, there was one of the most tense argument scenes, and I decided to put a MIDI of ABBA's Dancing Queen over one of the most heated arguments of the game. And I don't think everyone agreed with it, but I put it in anyway, and...
that was so iconic.
Yeah, and it's kind of... Hopefully it worked. For some, they were disturbed by it, but...
I look back on it, and it's these moments that make the game glow. I really want to go back to it sometime, but yeah, we've been saying that for so long, right? But who knows, maybe one day that happens. The thing for me is that I am far too stressed, and I say yes to everything and every request and everything, so I usually end up with far too much on my hands to work on stuff. But yeah, maybe one day I'll fly to New Zealand, and we can work something on the game for Game Jam or something. And then I fly back and never think about it again and just enjoy the fact that we did it.
If either of you come to New Zealand, you're free to hit. I'll shout you lunch. That's my. I'll shout you some kind of New Zealand meal. We'll call it that. So we'll go on to what do you like? This is the general thought. What do you like most about horror games, and what annoys you about horror games?
That's
So, Forge, do you want to start?
Do I want to fart?
Start! Oh my god!
Oh my god, farting.
Okay, well, I severely misheard that. I'm sorry. I have bad ears. I probably should mention that. I'm very bad at understanding what people say. But,
Well, would you like to fart?
I would like to fart. Okay, I'll go.
Okay, go ahead.
I don't think there's any specific things about horror that make me like or dislike it. It's just such a broad genre, and I like pretty much everything about it. I think so many different things can work for me. I know not everyone agrees on what makes a good horror movie or game or whatever. I just really enjoy anything that's horror related, honestly. I don't even know why I do. It's always been such a huge part of my life, and I've just grown to adore it. And as for things that annoy me, I'm very hard to annoy. I think everything can be pulled off well if they're done by the right person. But I have grown very tired of a lot of tropes, which we'll go over in a little bit anyway. But I've grown tired of especially the harmful ones, like the ones that portray mental illness as something really bad. For example, there's a lot of that in horror, which kind of always, irks me a little bit. And I've also grown a little tired of wasted concepts. A lot of horror has such good concepts. It has the potential to be so fresh and unique, but then just kind of decides to take a cliche route. It just decides to be not something of its own, but just kind of too fixed on the genre. I like when people experiment. I get a little annoyed when the games are too cliche, but I enjoy all horror regardless of whether it's good or bad. I just think it's such a fun genre, and I love it. Basically,
I enjoy dense atmospheres. I like slow burns. I like a procedurally building story. I like horror that doesn't sacrifice on a well-told, mature story. And I know asking for a mature story of an RPG Maker horror game might be a little bit too much to ask at times, but there are a few really well-told, mature horror stories made in the RPG Maker engine, and those are the ones I just happen to like. I also like games that take their themes seriously. I think immaturity when talking about touchy themes like mental illness and even things like sexual assault and minors and all this kind of thing, it just brings up a lot of problematic things that people bring into their games, either intentionally or unintentionally, just to kind of bring... Because it's so easy to play on adult fears and horror, but then be irresponsible with how you represent stuff because you just simply don't understand what it's like to be in that situation. It's usually when you're talking on behalf of people who haven't been through such experiences. And I hate things that chase you really quickly, touch to die encounters that will just when they touch you, you die, and it's like, well, where was the tension in that?
Yeah, no.
Well, generally, sometimes they can be fun, but there's way too much that they're just cheaply done. And then games that are just super frustrating gameplay-wise, I don't enjoy those. And music choices that ruin the mood. So, a music may change to a battle, you're in the middle of a tense horror scene, and then the battle theme comes on, it's like...
Oh my god, there was an actual game that did that. It played Battle 1 during one of the final bosses, I think, and it was so ridiculous. I literally broke down. It was just terrible.
Iconic. No, but not in a good way. There are some good iconics, like Dancing Queen, but Battle 1 is not of the good sort.
For me, as someone who's absolutely obsessed with horror, and I will defend the Dancing Queen choice till I die, I'm obsessed with how visuals and audio, particularly audio, contribute to the overall package. And a developer like Snow Owl, a developer of such games as It Moves, Reap and Sow, has incredible sound design. Just as important as the visual design is the creaks and the drops and atmospheric sounds elevate it so much. That's what I like.
And on a basic level, that is actually easier to accomplish in RPG Maker. I mean, it's harder on a general way. It's harder to create sounds. But it's easier to accomplish that inside the engine than it is to accomplish graphics. So it's something that people just usually don't think about, but it's so important and it's more accessible to work with.
Exactly. The very fact if each room or part had like a different background sound or something, or atmosphere that wasn't too obtrusive. I know it's a bit of an art to know how your sound works, but horror is so built on sound that it's almost impossible to ignore it. Okay, I'm out of here. See you. That was a good podcast.
Sorry.
Goodbye. No. And
you will die in 7 days.
Yes, that's true, and I'm scared. But no. So who hasn't spoken yet about what they like and what annoys them about horror games?
I haven't. I promise I'm not going to be too vitriolic about this. Yeah.
Let the boy speak.
The things I like about horror, which drives me to horror, is surprisingly not the scare factor, but how horror has this potential to make us, even on a subconscious level, face and think about concepts such as death and how we're here temporarily and faced with some realities of life that we don't really own our daily lives or that we tend to run away from. So that's a really good thing. One thing that I love about horror games and that I want to replicate on my games, even though they're not horror, is something that I did a lot of as a child. Do you remember when you were a child? I'm not sure if you did that, but I did that a lot. I would be on my bedroom and I would take a couple chairs and my bed and I would get the chairs together and the bed and I would lay a cover on top of everything and build a mini house and I was safe from everything inside of that. Or there was a desk actually. This was even more memorable because I used to stick some stuff to the parts of the desk underneath it. So I as a child would go down there and put something to cover the entrance, and it was a tiny box and I was closed in there drawing on the walls and I felt safe there. And it's like the world outside wasn't safe, but I was safe in this bubble that I created. It's a feeling that I like to bring on in games, this ephemeral safety, because we have to create our own safeties in life. The world is so crazy outside. You can step outside and you don't know if the person next door is a maniac or you never know what's gonna happen. But you have to believe in this safety that you're in or else you'll go insane. So I really like that feeling of people creating something peaceful and happy in a place that's insane and otherwise inhospitable. As for things I don't like, Cash pretty much said it all. The immature handling of sensitive themes goes hand in hand with the downright terrible gameplay mechanics of running away from you touch, you die encounter, because these are things that are so easy to do. You're 13 years old and you open your RPG Maker for the first time, and what's the easiest thing to do? An event that touches you and you die. And so you're immature and you're inexperienced and you don't know how to write and to handle themes. But what's an easy way to get your audience disgusted? Just have a child, a little girl as a protagonist, and then start talking about irresponsible themes with these sorts of gameplay mechanics. And that just puts me off. I can't. I really don't stand it. It makes me angry.
I feel so attacked.
Yeah.
It's like a lot of people approach games and entertainment as escapism from the troubles of the world, and that's good, and I enjoy that too. But I also believe that all fiction, and even escapism, is imbued with reality, and the most impactful experiences I've had with entertainment have some degree of reality to them. When you confront what are known as adult fears, and you tap into the realities of the world head on, which is, I think, one of the greatest strengths of horror, then it's effective. I think zombies were introduced as some kind of fear of nuclear extinction maybe, or fear of mass contagion, science and technology advancing too fast. Sometimes tackling these fears head on using media is the best thing people can do to cope with the situation and actually make sense of it, I think.
Oh, I just want to make one thing clear. When I said, when I was talking about 13-year-olds opening RPG Maker and just doing the first thing that they can, I please, if you're a 13-year-old and you're listening to this, please do everything you want to do and make games, and you're gonna do wonderful. But yeah, be aware of like the topics that you're handling, and yeah, sometimes people are not gonna enjoy that. Yeah, but please, I want everyone to be able to create and iterate and experience different concepts. And maybe I'm just talking bullshit, and this is a fun thing to do. So yeah, I don't want to rob anyone of their creative freedom. Just use it responsibly as a 13-year-old can. Anyway.
Yeah, I mean, you're gonna get better, so, I mean, it doesn't really matter if you mess up a few things. It's okay to be immature at that age. I think as you work on more games and you write more and you make more, I think you're just gonna learn to kind of, avoid certain topics or handle them better anyway, so...
Yeah, I think age is not necessarily a substitute for maturity. There's a lot of people who are in their mid-20s and 30s and beyond who display a great sense of immaturity when it comes to these topics. So it's not just 13-year-olds. Some 13-year-olds I know are very responsible when it comes to this kind of thing. So it's just being responsible regardless of age. It's being responsible about the themes that you bring in-game.
Guess who's back? Back again. It's me. I'm back. Tell a friend. Just here to make sure you're feeling all right, and the problematic themes haven't snatched you into the night. It's time for good horror games to come back into power by following our simple tips. The pleasure is ours. Have no fear, no reason to cry or mope as we analyze horror's favorite tropes.
Our special Halloween segment, folks. It's the spooky horror drill down, using certain games as examples to illustrate our points. I thought a good way to start the discussion about horror games in general, we already have, but would be to examine certain specific games and see different tropes that they used and see what about them that we thought was useful and what was maybe not so useful. So I went through the RPGmaker.net database and sorted games by amount of downloads from most downloaded at the top that are classified as horror, and I think it should come to no surprise to anybody the most popular horror RPG Maker game in existence is Pom Gets Wi-Fi. Pom Gets Wi-Fi.
Oh my god.
I half expected it to be something that I wasn't going to be expecting, as in it was going to come as a surprise to me, but that was not what I expected. Good job, Cash.
Pom Gets Wi-Fi is a horror game made in RPG Maker 2003 with 2 endings, over 20 dog breeds, a cute pair of doggies as protagonists, and a raging fire at the beginning of the game that burns these 2 innocent dogs to death. The game's description says it was made with the goal of being the scariest, least happy game ever made on the engine. Vibe-wise, the developer says they were going for a mush between Nintendogs and Silent Hill 2. The game features the dumb sheep memes, Star Pugs, which is a cute little parody of the coffee shop Starbucks, a dog telling you to punch him in the genitals, and one of the most accurate depictions of canine depression I have ever seen in games. Why is life so suck, Pom laments. They apply to the crushing loneliness of the foggy wastelands of literal rainbow-filled heaven as the crushing moral of this story that we all must accept. Life without Wi-Fi sucks. That's why Pom Gets Wi-Fi is the best horror game of all time. What are your thoughts on this?
I mean, honestly, I can't disagree.
I really there was a lot of flack for this game back then, but I don't have anything against it, and I think it has a great art direction and it's so cute. But I understand people getting angry at the fact that it got so popular because of PewDiePie.
Yeah. But
yeah, it's a fun game and it's iconic. Thanks to its virality, it'll forever go down in history as a thing.
As a thing.
I mean, there have been much worse games to get as popular, so you can hate Palm for being like really popular, but I think it's good to acknowledge that it's really not the worst game ever made, and I actually really liked it. I have a lot of nostalgia for it.
Yeah, I don't think it's bad.
Yeah, I think it's genuinely one of the better RPG Maker games I've played.
Definitely. I think it's a great game. I think it's actually really well made, really well polished, and if it had not been as popular as it is, people would not be as angry. Like, if this was a game...
Actually, people would be proud of it.
Yeah, if this game was like 500 downloads, people would be like, underrated gem, this is so fun. But it's just the very fact of its popularity, which is not the developer's fault, that people just, like to crap on it because they're like, why is this so much downloads? We should be happy for others' success, It's just the case of tearing down another game that... Well, I mean, yeah, it's bound to happen to popular
we should pin
games.
it on the front page.
It's basically been pinned for the past few years on Buzzing. It's not there now, but it has had its due. So yeah, just put it as a banner forever for everyone to see.
The writing is so cute. It made me giggle so many times. But yeah,
yeah, I enjoyed it as well.
And it's also really timeless. Like a lot of the games that even come out today with like the very Tumblr humor and the really cute art direction and the shitposting kind of humor, I think it still stands up so well, like surprisingly well.
I didn't expect to be talking at length about Pom Gets Wi-Fi on the Horror Game podcast of October, but here we are. But we are actually going to transition into a game that is very popular and influential in the horror market, would you say? No, that's not the right word, but I'm going to continue. Yume Nikki. In 2004, Japanese freeware developer Kikiyama created a game titled Yume Nikki, Japanese for Dream Diary, in RPG Maker. The result was a surreal, abstract art game about lucid dreaming, which gained a dedicated cult following in its heyday. Much of the appeal comes from the fact that everything in Yume Nikki, from the story to the imagery, is left to the player to interpret. Marotsuki is a hikikomori shunnin, or hermit, who refuses to leave her apartment, and there's not much to do beyond sleeping. Marotsuki enters different worlds in her dreamscape and explores them, interacting with strange alien-like creatures and collecting effects which appear in the form of eggs. You're given few, if any, instructions, do anything you want, and go anywhere you want. It's left up to you. We're going to talk about specific examples of games. There might be light spoilers, but I will edit in post-production spoilers and so on if we do end up talking about stuff. So let's just feel free to, talk freely about these games. What do y'all think about Yume Nikki?
I love it. I honestly
same.
It's gotten mixed reviews from RPG Maker Net. Like, it's not on the site, but I've seen it talked about on the Discord, and a lot of people hate it, a lot of people love it. I think it's just extremely unique, even if people have argued that just because it's unique, it isn't good. But I really applaud it for trying something new, and even though a lot of people find it boring, I think it's one of the most inspirational games of all time. And as far as walking simulators go, I think it's one of the best out there. I will say that Yume Nikki kind of doesn't stand up as much as it could anymore, because some of the fan games are like absolutely mind-blowing. They have so much good content. Yume Nikki is a little bit bland now in comparison. It's got a lot of like black looping worlds that are a little boring, but even so, I think it's one of the best RPG Maker games ever made, without doubt. And I don't care what anyone says about it. I absolutely love it to death. And yeah, I'll praise it until I die.
Yeah, I feel pretty much the same about it. I love how it invented a genre. It is a horror game, but it's a subgenre, and it used the unique gameplay that's within that game to tell a narrative that is so good. It doesn't need text to tell anything, and then you just discover these things. I have never played Zelda. I'm confessing this to you right now. You didn't know that, but I have never played.
Dang, let's
Zelda.
just shut off the podcast right now. Let's just end it.
Wait, none of them, or just like a specific Zelda?
Literally none of them. I have played the intro to the Super Nintendo one.
Call the game police. Call the game playing police. We need to get them on
younger,
Joseph right now.
when I was younger, I wouldn't play a game if there weren't any damage numbers on screen. So that's why I didn't play. But there's this feeling of discovery. I was with a friend and he was playing the Super Nintendo Zelda, which was A Link to the Past. Yeah, see how versed I am in Zelda. And there's this feeling of discovering new things. And Yumeniki is a completely different game. There is nothing like Zelda, but it does have that sense of finding new things. And you'll learn more things about the story and the characters and everything. And it's just really good. And it's unique. I mean, it is kind of boring, like Frogge said, at times, now that you have so many new things, but I love how it explores. But basically what I want to do is be inventive with your gameplay, guys. It's really fresh and you could invent a whole new genre.
Yeah, and it definitely makes every little discovery completely big. Like, you could just stumble across one sprite at random that has like a 1 out of 2 chance of spawning, and you'd just still be so shocked at it happening because it's filled with such exploration and wonder, and there's so much discovery, like Joe said.
It is a game that relies so much on non-linear exploration. You explore the worlds in generally non-linear order. You can explore it in an order that you wish. And it's a game that has inspired countless games to pretty much be the polarizing or dreaded term walking simulator through worlds of visual and audio delights, or whatever you might call it, with limited interaction. What do you think of what has come out of the game, the subgenre, I guess, and what's nice about it, maybe what could be improved, or, just your general thoughts about it?
Yeah, I think it has such a good impact. It's had such a good impact because I think it's inspired so many people. The idea of it, like, being exploring dreams is just such a fun concept, and I always love people making their own fan games based on their own dreams.
Now that we've finished with that, let's explore a few tropes that Yume Nikki utilizes. I went through the TV tropes page for Yume Nikki and came across a few that I thought might be interesting. First one is the concept of the creepy child. The protagonist may look sweet, innocent, and even angelic, but there's, quote, something not quite right about them, end quote. Oftentimes in horror games, the horror revolves around their main protagonist's mental isolation, which causes them to act out. For example, Amnesia: The Dark Descent. I love the way that it played around with sanity mechanics to instill a sense of fear into the player, and that's backed up by some solid game mechanics. In this case, Marotsuki's status as a hikikomori, or recluse shut-in, also known as a hermit, causes her to stab numerous innocent creatures to death within her highly disturbing dreamscape. This is an ending to the game, and there's spoilers here, slight spoilers, you might want to skip a couple of minutes, to the game that ends with the protagonist dead by her own doing, and the way that's done can be argued to either be fitting or irresponsible. What do you think about how Yume Nikki uses the unstable mental state of a person to drive horror? Is it effective? Is it lazy? And why?
I think it can be done really well. It's not always done amazingly. Like, sometimes it's just portrays the person as, like, being insane and delusional and being, crazy and harmful to the people around. And I don't like when it's done that way, but sometimes it's just done as in, like, it's like the horrors of trying to live with a certain kind of thing that's, I don't want to say holding you back, more like something that's affecting your life. I think Yume Nikki is just, the story is pretty much left open to interpretation for, like, the entire thing. And I don't want to judge it for that. Like, for all I know, the ending could, in Kikiyama's mind, it could be super fitting. It could be like the perfect conclusion. It could be like maybe symbolic of something. But if you interpret it as like maybe Marotsuki being crazy and just like, offing herself because she's, insane, she should be locked up in a cuckoo house or whatever, I think that interpretation is pretty harmful, but I just don't think the evidence is there for us to make a definitive statement about whether it's good or bad.
In Yume Nikki's particular case, I think it's interesting in that it is specifically portraying a dream world.
Yeah.
It feels kind of deconstructed in a way, even though I'm not sure whether it is or not, but it portrays it in a way that's different from your typical, oh, I'm a yandere, ha ha ha, I'm so cute, look at my knife.
Yeah.
No, it gives some depth to the character that you can't really know. You really have to read between the lines inside the dream world, and it's a moment of intimacy. Those things, they aren't really happening in the literal sense. They're happening in a metaphorical sense, which is different from a lot of other games that utilize this trope. So I think in Humaniki's case, it is effective, but in so many other games, it is just toxic and bizarre and off-putting, and I will gladly Alt F4 the game immediately. Yeah, but in Humaniki's case, it's very effective. I like it. It's a narrative tool.
What I will add is I think that Yume Nikki, even though it's got sparse dialogue, I feel like it operates from a space of empathy, and it operates from a space of understanding the mindset of a person who has been shut inside their home for a long time. It's even a message on the kind of maddening effect of being in an enclosed space from an empathic perspective rather than Hollywoodizing it or making it some kind of shock effect. It's like, well, this is the reality of what goes on inside someone's mind when they've been shut in an apartment. They just wake up, play video games maybe, go to sleep, and it's not even like, look at that poor person. It's like there's something weird and wonderful, but also strangely dangerous that goes on here. What can we do here, kind of thing? It's still quite hard to bring a topic like that into a game and have it be responsible, but I think that it is such a work of art that it's able to bring it across in a tasteful way. And you said something about deconstruction. I actually have it here. One of the tropes is deconstruction game. Yume Nikki could be regarded as a deconstruction game. Gameplay-wise, it takes non-linear exploration to its logical extreme, basing itself entirely on traversing what's known as Beautiful Void and little else. Now, Beautiful Void, according to TV tropes, is a setting that lacks background and supporting characters, often in a deliberately jarring fashion. It will often do exactly what its name implies. Beautiful, yet somehow a wasteland. And we already talked about how some people copied it well, making stuff in large, non-linear, surreal spaces, but there's quite a few mazes in this game. The game never gives any hints about where the effects are hidden, so you just have to try out every path generally. Well, it kind of gives some hints, but you just have to try different paths and explore your way through if you don't want to use a walkthrough. What do you think about mazes or even key and door chains in horror games like this?
I like the sense that you're on your own. It's something that's really unique about Yume Nikki and other games that are similar to it. That you're on your own and you have to learn how the mechanics within the game work. And it's very likely that most people that finish the game don't even know like 50% of it. It's different from, say, a Resident Evil game where you were presented with the mechanics and how the game works from the get-go and you just go through with it. But that's not really talking about non-linearity. These are two different things. The non-linearity or semi-non-linearity applies to a lot of other games that I like, which are pretty strict when it comes to gameplay. Like Parasite Eve 2, I mean, the level design is non-linear, although the story is linear. And you can do some stuff out of order, but the game is very much a closed box of tools, and you're presented with them immediately, and you know them from the get-go, and it's very clear to you. And on a game like Yume Nikki, you don't know, you're being introduced to new things, and you never know what to expect from the game, and that feeling is really cool. But before we talk about, I just want to ask you one more question about Yume Nikki. How do you feel about the remake of Yume Nikki?
Oh, right, the remake. I'm just gonna Google.
It's not meant to be a serious question, okay.
Okay, in complete honesty, I don't hate it. I think it's fine as like its own game, but it's definitely not a remake of Yume Nikki. It's basically if Yume Nikki was like was like a 2D puzzle platformer kind of, and I think it works fine as a reimagining of Yume Nikki in that genre. But like, I just don't think it comes anywhere near Yume Nikki in terms of how amazing it is and how inspirational and unique it is.
Yeah, I haven't played it, but it looks like it has mixed reviews. It changed quite a bit of the content from the original Yume Nikki, like maps and stuff, is that correct?
Yeah, it's definitely hardly the same game. It was advertised as a remake. They just made some of the environments in 3D and added some puzzle platforming to it, and they called it Yume Nikki. The story has some connections, but otherwise I think it's just an okay game. I just don't think it's anything that outstanding.
Oh, and I just thought it was funny that such a thing existed to begin with, because it's so different from what the original game was, and it's baffling to me. But I didn't actually play it, I just read reviews about it. It piques my interest, and I think it should have been mentioned here. I was thinking about mentioning it, but I forgot to mention it.
I think something important to also mention is that even though it's like an official continuation that was supposedly done under the strict supervision of the developer Kikiyama himself, it actually completely changes the ending. It makes it so that, well, slight spoiler alert, I guess. It makes it so that after the ending of the original Yume Nikki, it was also a dream, like a dream within a dream, I guess. And it just kind of picks up. It definitely redefines the ending of the original.
I think the idea that it's based in reality is quite central to, its meaning. As what I said earlier about it being a commentary on life, if it's all a dream within a dream, I don't know if it means as much to me. This is my personal opinion about it.
I suppose there's probably that thought that went into it. I don't think it was just meant to shit on the original ending or make it any worse, but I think maybe it's trying to imply that I don't really know, but I think there's something deeper behind it anyway.
There's something there.
I had a train of thought there, but there's definitely something there. I respect it, even if I don't completely agree with it.
Alright, we'll move on to the next project, Ebe. Ebe is a horror adventure game released by Cody in February 2012 using RPG Maker 2000. It follows the experiences of a 9-year-old girl named Ebe who visits an art gallery with her parents. While looking around, she finds herself stuck in a strange, surreal world where the art has come to life. What's worse, Ebe's life is now linked to that of a red rose she picks up, and if all the petals fall, she'll die. She must solve puzzles with the companion she finds to find a way to get back into the real world. Now, before we discuss tropes, I want to address my favorite scene in the game, and maybe even one of my favorite scenes in all of RPG Maker horror games, and it's the intro. You're in a set of interconnected rooms in the museum portion of a game, but slowly and surely things start to seem a little bit off. People disappear, fruit starts falling out of paintings, lights start flickering out, and these just weird descriptions of things that are happening. And very slowly you realize that this museum is trying to kill you. When you interact with this glass cabinet on the wall, it says it doesn't look like it's locked, but it won't open. And then a shadowy being within the cabinet knocks on the window. And I have no idea why that was so scary to me at that moment, or just creepy, but this entire scene gives me the creeps every time, from the silence except for your footsteps, the impeccable audio cues, and then the painting on the floor that just begins your descent into madness. Yeah, that's one of my favorite scenes. What can we do to make moments that are as epic or awesome as that one was for me?
I'm not too surprised that the intro on Eve is one of the best scenes, because in RPG horror in general, I just think intros and outros are some of the most memorable moments. And even when I don't play a game for more than 40 minutes of it, I always tend to remember the intros, or even finish it. I always remember the intros. There's something so memorable about them when you're first introduced into that world and you're not used to what it's going to be like, and everything in it comes as a surprise to you. I think a good intro is very, very important, and I think Eve absolutely nails it. I think it's such a memorable intro, and I don't think it could have been any better than it is, honestly.
I did enjoy the intro a lot. Now that you mentioned, it's flooding back memories back to me. But the thing is, it's been a good at least 5, maybe 6 or 7 years since when was it? Yeah, I was playing it around 2013, 2014, I think. Yeah.
What would you have to say about tense or good intros in general, or just making awesome tense scenes that are extremely memorable and almost make a game?
Yes, for the scenes, it's funny because often the commentary that people make is, don't put intros to your games, just go straight to the cut. And it's this kind of, there's a divide there. And I have been appreciating games that just pluck you right into the middle of the game with no direction whatsoever. It's funny. I mean, that is an intro in itself, because you are within the context of the gameplay, but you're left without any clues. It's just back to the Yume Nikki example, because you don't really know what's going on around you, and you're in the middle of this nothing, and there's nothing going on. But in terms of making memorable cutscenes, I guess everyone has their own style and things that they like to bring up. I'm not sure if I have anything relevant to say.
I mean, the thing about the Ebe intro cutscene per se was that it was just walking around and interacting with things. So it wasn't necessarily it wasn't something that you couldn't interact with. You were consistently trying to find. I mean, you were interacting and walking around, and I like that you were discovering things that way straight away.
Yes, but what I mean is that it is still a safe, linear, predictable in a way, a directed intro. That's the distinction between a directed intro like that, which is playable, and an intro like on some other game where you just plopped in the middle, and you're free to go to whichever direction you go, and that direction will be your intro, and that is crazy. That's something that I've been meaning to play around with for a while, but I haven't. But for my own projects, for my current project, I am still thinking about the intro itself. We have a whole pseudo tutorial dungeon, which it isn't supposed to feel like tutorial dungeon, but yeah, we're doing that whole thing
just to respect time and stuff. We got different tropes in here. The art game. Most RPG Maker horror games feature the protagonist entering a generic haunted house and either being chased by one monster occasionally or suffering from many deaths. That is, horror games tend to have a large variety of unique animations for deaths other than the standard take too much damage and then collapse. But Ebe is a story-driven surreal horror featuring a hit point system and set in an art gallery. My opinion is that it was a classic horror game because it broke the mold and did something interesting, taking a story in an unconventional setting but also putting interesting gameplay in it. Question is, considering that Ebe was a classic in its own right, what can horror games today do to be like Ebe and break the mold, to create something truly original?
I think the best idea really is to do whatever you think is special to you, like, even if you do like a mansion horror or just like a school horror, if you base it on things that you've experienced yourself, it's going to be special and unique in its own way. I don't know if Ebe is really inspired by like a true event. Maybe like the developer went to an art gallery and was like creeped out by the paintings there or whatever. I don't know if that's the case, but it definitely feels like it. It definitely feels like it's a genuine and authentic experience. I think that's what drives it being so unique. And even if not, I think it's a good idea to just try to do what's not been done to death. And, there's so much that hasn't been done to death. Yeah, I think it's just important to not be blinded by what you enjoy. And I mean, of course, it's important to take inspiration from what you enjoy, but I think it's important to try not to recreate, but to only take inspiration and create your own thing.
And this thing about recreation, I think it's fun that sometimes for you to just force yourself to copy a game to the minute detail for a small project like an exercise, and you're gonna come along so many points in which you disagree, and you naturally are gonna want to deviate from the original one. And if you just take that point in which you deviate and you expand it, that is you, and then you can take everything else and throw it right into the garbage and just focus on what makes you do your choices, make you do your decisions. It's a fun exercise. These games are very memorable because they do something different with the gameplay that dictates the way that you think within the game. Yuminiki, for example, with its open-endedness and its lack of clear rules, make you it's an insecure feeling. You never know what's going to happen, but it's also, it fills you with wonder, and it's a dreary wonder, but it's very different from what I felt when I played it. But once again, it was so long ago. These games, they set the way they set a unique gameplay is both memorable because that's the system that's from that game, and the narrative is built around that, and it dictates the way that your game flows. It's really cool. And once again, if you try to break out of the mold of making one-touch death encounters, you're already scoring 1 positive point from me. It doesn't have to have damage numbers, but if it does, then it's 2 points.
Well, we might come back to the segment about discussing spooky horror games, but I think since we are getting on in time, we might go on to the segment about RMN asking questions, because it'd be nice to answer some questions that RMN asked. RPGmaker.net users, asking specific questions about horror in general. We'll start with our first question, which is by Unity. Most RPG Maker horror games ditch the combat aspect of RPGs. Can you make a horror game that combines traditional RPG combat and still conveys fear? How would you go about making such a game?
Well, I have some thoughts about this. Also, hi, Uni. First is if the very first objective of your game is instilling fear. Like, for me personally, that's not what the main thing that I look at. Like, fear is a means of delivering a reflection about some aspect of something. So you use fear as a tool, not as a goal. But some other people, people enjoy movies to feel fear. So I'm not everyone. People enjoy movies for different reasons. But yeah, even within the context of turn-based structure, if you're putting a set of stakes, it doesn't matter that you're in a random encounter with an enemy. If you feel that the stakes outside of the battle, or even inside of the battle, if your narrative manages to put that stake into your mind at all times, then you're gonna feel scared no matter how... I haven't played Undertale either. I'm sorry, I don't play many games, but and it isn't a turn-based RPG in the literal sense, but it does manage to instill you a sense of dread some of the times. I did play Undertale for the first hour or so, and I stopped playing because I started crying, and I didn't want to deal with that. It did manage to make me feel afraid because of the stakes. But I don't know, Frogge, do you have any thoughts on this, or...
I think you summed it up pretty excellently, honestly. I guess the only thing I would add is that fear doesn't have to be consistent all the way throughout a game, so it's okay to abandon that feeling of fear in favor of gameplay on occasion if you just want to throw in a battle, if that's really what you want to do. You can instill that fear beforehand and also afterwards in non-battle scenes. It also doesn't have to be like turn-based combat, because a lot of games like Silent Hill and Resident Evil use action combat, and action RPGs do exist. I've seen some made in RPG Maker as well, and I think it works best for horror because you're physically there fighting the monster. You have to run away from it strategically, or whatever. I can't pronounce words. And especially when you're trying to fight it with melee, or you're using like a very weak gun, you have to be very careful around it, and I just think it kind of creates a sense of fear to be trying to physically fight a monster in real time. But maybe that's just me, I don't know. Many people find the original Silent Hill games scary, so...
I absolutely agree with that, but there's this one point that this is one specific feeling that you're trying to elicit. But on myself, for example, as a player and as a developer, that's not necessarily what I'm looking for in horror. So it really comes down to which sort of fear or emotions that you want to elicit from the player. Some systems are better designed, better equipped to elicit this sort of feeling. It's funny that in the Silent Hill case, or RPG Maker games cases most of the time, the controls are intentionally in Silent Hill's cases, and unintentionally on RPG Maker cases, bad controls. Yeah. And they help you get that unnerving feeling. Yeah. That doesn't necessarily... That can happen in a turn-based environment. Like, for example, Resident Evil Gaiden. That has this feeling of unnerving, you don't know if you're going to come alive, even though it's a front-view battle system, because there is this thing running around which you have to hit the gun trigger at the right time. Yeah, this is funny. There's ways to elicit different feelings from different gameplay. I think a lot of different gameplay systems can work depending on what you want to achieve.
And real quick, I also just want to add, what creates fear is very subjective, so if you want to do like turn-based combat and you just make like the battler itself scary and the music scary, I think even that's going to create fear in some people. So I wouldn't worry about what's going to create fear, because it's also subjective. There's no objective way of being able to say, I did this because it's scary. I think you just do whatever feels right to you. It may scare people, it may not. It's all just, bollocks. So I just say go whatever.
Yeah, since I like horror for its dense atmospheres, I think battles can interrupt that, but if you make the transition smooth enough, and if its themes go well enough with the game, like if the battles make sense instead of being out of theme with the game or character with the game, it can still maintain momentum, but I still think momentum is key. I think ensuring momentum through transitions is important, because I think horror is a very atmosphere-based genre, and I want to be kept in it and not torn out of the atmosphere. That would be my addition. Yeah, so we've got a couple of questions that we've already answered. Marion, Kailela, and Horrorbox asked what makes horror enjoyable for you, but we've already kind of answered that, so we'll just kind of move on. Thank you for asking these questions, by the way. Kailela asked what types of horror games are better than others, in your opinion, and we've kind of answered that as well. I thought another one here, Starskip asks, do you think developers making games and RPG Maker as an engine are at a disadvantage in any way when trying to make them scary because of the engine's constraints? For example, the point of view and the other constraints of the engine.
I don't know. I don't want to call it a disadvantage because, like I said, different things are going to scare different people. So I think the overhead view can be scary to certain people more than others. And I just really think you should just do whatever. I don't think it's a disadvantage. I think if you know what you're doing, you can create that sense of fear. But even if it's harder, it just comes down to how good you are at what you're doing, I think.
I think that there is a disadvantage not within the engine, but within the concept of what is an RPG Maker project. So that's not the engine's fault. When you go there and you create a new game, and then there's this bright green grass and the RTP style, and you just look at that and that's what it is. But if you remove everything, literally everything, and just put it in a very simple black window skin and create a game that's only text, like what Liberty did once with her
The Sound of Flames.
Yeah, that was amazing. And she just used text and audio, and it was so good. It's entirely within RPG Maker, but it's effective in its narrative, and it goes away from the expectations of what do you think an RPG Maker should be. I mean, the RTP is great, and I love the RTP, and I love the default things. I was into an argument that I think people should be able to legitimately use sample maps, and I will defend that to death, and that was very controversial. But I think it comes down to the limitations from the base game, the new game default.
We'll go quickly through others. Thank you, Katana Hiroshi, for asking some questions, but I believe we've answered them elsewhere. We'll answer a Delson question. What makes a compelling horror game protagonist?
Make them a badass woman. Okay, no, sorry, that is very subjective. Frogge, go first.
Make them a 13-year-old girl with amnesia who looks 8.
There's that as well. I just thought of like, are there many grandmas as horror game protagonists? Like 60-year-old?
Wow, yeah, that's really cool. I was
70?
thinking about that. I was thinking about portraying relationships that had gone onto that stage also. Yeah. That would be pretty fun. And there's a lot of stakes involved. And when you're a person of higher age, you tend to be more frail, and you have more bonds with people because time means bonds, and you've bonded with so many people, and you have so many things to mull over and reflect that have happened on your past. And an amnesic 12-year-old girl doesn't have so many things to think about as an 80-year-old woman does. So yeah,
you could think about past relationships and things like that. Has To the Moon has a little bit of that vibe about it.
I'm by no means an expert writer, but what I enjoy in the protagonists is when they're facing off against something that completely goes against everything they believe or everything they know. I think it's Medfather is probably a good example, which is an example of a girl protagonist who looks way too young and is just sweet and whatever. It does genuinely feature a girl who's scared about her life. It's about her trying to grow up and deal with having a father who doesn't love her and is harmful to the people around her. And it's about her trying to cope with that, struggle against it, try to learn what to do in that situation. And I think that's what makes her so compelling, is that she's so innocent and naive to a situation that's completely terrible. I think protagonists like that face off against very things that even adults would be. I think protagonists should, in the best possible scenario, face off against their own beliefs maybe, or the things they are used to, stuff like that.
Yeah, I enjoy that as well. There's an obstacle, you have an intention, and that intention is met by that obstacle, and you're kind of, facing your inner fears, all that kind of stuff. Sheenan and Dalson actually asked pretty similar questions, but I combined them into one. So they asked, How can one create a sense of dread in a pixel environment, and how do you integrate music and sound to enhance the horror ambiance or ambience?
I want to say that I don't think there's like, of course, just like with everything else I said, I don't think there's a correct way to do it. I think one of my favorite examples is The Shining. It's an extremely colorful horror movie, yet so many people still find it scary. And I think it's just down to how it's presented, as in, if you're presenting it in a way that feels serious and atmospheric enough to you, it should probably come across as, atmospheric and serious to other people as well. So, just do whatever feels right to you, and I think it's gonna succeed in the end.
Sheenan asks, levity in horror, yay or nay? Levity being the treatment of a serious matter with humor or lack of due respect.
Okay, so that depends on the context of what you're trying to achieve with the game. That's a recurring theme within this podcast, right? You want to elicit a certain feeling from the player, and that really depends on what horror means to you as a developer, and what are you trying to achieve with it. Because I don't really believe in horror as a goal as opposed to horror as a tool. I mean, both can be true, but what do you want to achieve through the horror? So horror comedy is a great way to make a commentary and to just have some fun. And there are ways to merge the two together in a way that still delivers a final product that is enjoyable. I mean, it won't be as scary, but it will elicit a feeling that doesn't. It can be scary still. It just will elicit different things.
I think it's just like everything else we've said on this podcast. It's really subjective, I don't think it has to be quite as scary. I think dark humor or just comedy in general in horror can work to make it more entertaining if scares are not what you're going for as much as you want to entertain. So I think it's just, as Joe said, it's dependent on what you're trying to achieve.
Have y'all, just one question, have y'all watched Evil Dead? Because it's a great example of a franchise that scales that up.
I've watched the remake.
Oh no, that's nothing to do with it.
I've not watched the original.
Yeah, I think that's one of the classics I haven't got around to watching, but I know a lot about it, and I've seen clips, and yeah, it's one of those examples that is just like an example of horror comedy working. I think horror and comedy both are polarizing genres. They are generally the ones that get the most flack because it's easy to dismiss horror as, oh, it's not scary, and comedy as, oh, it's not funny. They're genres that rely on the same concept of setup and punchline. They're probably the most ones that people expect to sit back, fold their arms, and go, I expect to be entertained. As opposed to other things like action and adventure and stuff, they're more lenient on certain things, I feel. It's well known that IMDb scores and so on are lower for horror and comedy genres in general than other genres because of the expectations. And you have to set up an atmosphere and a punchline that could be the delivering of a scare or something. It just so happens that the levity of comedy, in my experience, can complement the scares of horror in a way that's jarring, and the juxtaposition just tends to work so well. Like, because horror, it's like a child when being confronted by some adult who plays the peekaboo game. They hide their face, and there's fear of the unknown, and then they open and say, peekaboo, and then the kid will laugh because they're so scared and terrified of the possibility that's being, presented to them. I just think horror and comedy are so instinctually linked in our DNA that's why they work so brilliant. We laugh at the most terrifying things sometimes, so...
Yeah, I mean, I was laughing the entire time while I was watching a Serbian film, which I guess kind of, made people think I was a psychopath for a while. It's not a movie that people generally tend to laugh at because it's very gross, but I think it does definitely go hand in hand, I think.
Little Wing Guy asks, what would you say to someone who avoids horror RPG Maker games simply because they can't see them being scary? Someone who doesn't think villager01.png lying face down in pixel blood can build an atmosphere. What can an RPG Maker horror game do to appeal to that kind of audience? And I would add, should they?
I have a very clear answer for this. I just want to say, if you're looking to play an RPG Maker horror game and you want to be scared, I think you should steer away because usually most of the time you're going to be disappointed, even if you are scared. Like, I don't think most of them are consistently like terrifying all the way throughout. Whenever I'm going into an RPG Maker horror game, I think the best thing to expect is just a good game and not a good horror game. Or like a good story, I guess, because a lot of them are rather lacking in terms of gameplay. But I just think if you want to be scared, probably I wouldn't want to say that you're wrong for not wanting to play the games, but no, I don't think you're wrong, but I think it's just better to go in with different expectations if you are interested in playing certain games, I guess.
Yeah, maybe you shouldn't go with the mindset of they can't be scary. There are other things that they can achieve, even if you don't get scared by them. Or you could just ask PewDiePie to what's the word for that? Oh my god, I forgot.
React? Scream at your jump
Right,
scares.
okay, that works. No,
Yeah.
Oh my god.
I think that's a really good and long-winded way of saying you're wrong and you shouldn't ask that question. But
No! That's not what I said at all.
I think that's exactly what Frogge's saying, just in the long term. But
No! No!
Oh my god.
No!
no, but yeah, I think that despite horror RPG Maker games being pixelated, sometimes when you give less detail into a game or less detail into art into a game, it gives you more chance to fill in the blanks with your imagination.
Absolutely.
Now, I know that people read novels, horror novels, and they get scared by them. So why not an RPG Maker game that's almost reads like a novel, but has music and sound and stuff that complements it? Now, it just may be that a person like this does not get scared by horror novels or things like that, not so easily scared, or even does not appreciate that kind of atmosphere. It might just not be for you. And for developers to appeal to those type of people, they could add different elements like more higher resolution graphics and so on to try and scare them visually. Or they could just say, well, those aren't the type of people I want to reach with my game. Sometimes you want to reach a niche of people that are really excited by pixelated horror games because they have that type of brain that works in that way, that gets scared by the lack of information rather than being able to see everything.
Is this useful to you? Is it better than browsing Reddit? I hope so, because this was a pain to edit. Ooh, I'm scary.
Let's move on to our next segment. Let me try that again. Let's move on to our next segment where I ask each of our guests about specific projects that they're working on at the moment. I will start with JosephSeraph, and I'm going to give a quick synopsis of each game if I can, and kind of ask both shared questions and individual questions. But first, correct me if I'm wrong at any time, I'm just going to read some of the game description of Records in Blue. Records in Blue is a hybrid between a DRPG, which I suppose is a dungeon RPG, and a side-scroll exploration game. Enter our protagonist, the young knight Alma, who has been tasked with investigating a mysterious island that, after disappearing for over half a century, has strangely resurfaced in plain sight. Uncover and manage a myriad of unique weapons and struggle to return alive from dangerous explorations. Get an easy grasp on the tools offered and master them to find many different strategies. Make prudent choices and customize your characters to overcome the stakes and dissipate the veil of mystery surrounding the island. Taking inspiration from themes and locations from the real world, as well as their love for creative, unique spins on turn-based RPGs, developers JosephSeraph and Hidekichi serve you a dark and harsh fantasy world, but one that is also surprisingly soothing, where people find comfort in the frail sanctuaries of peace that they manage to procure and try to find joy in the smallest of things. Joe, what is this game and what is it about to you?
Okay, so I've always wanted to do. I like dungeon crawlers and I love RPG gameplay mechanics, so I wanted to expand on that. And I've noticed that this genre isn't particularly explored within the community. This is a fusion of two things that I've always wanted to be in a way that's pretty. I haven't seen something mixing these two. So this is the side exploration in town, so you can meet all of this cast of characters and understand what they're going through. The gameplay aspect from the first-person dungeon crawler dungeons. It's a fusion of two things that I really want to do, and I hope they complement each other well. The concept for the island, I'm not sure if I was supposed to talk about that yet, but it is based on a neighborhood here in São Paulo, Brazil, which is called Liberdade. And it is the Brazilian-Japanese neighborhood of São Paulo. It is actually the biggest Japanese settlement out of Japan. It's a cultural clash. I was talking to some people from there, and the culture of the Japanese Brazilians, and it's funny to think about that the names that are popular for Japanese Brazilians that are born today are the names that were popular in the 50s in Japan. So it's the story of a culture that seeded off from mainland. It's a branch, like on biology, when a species separates into two new species due to different geography, like going somewhere else. I wanted to explore that, how the culture of mainland and the culture of this land that got whisked away and now is suddenly back, how this changed. So it is inspired by this neighborhood of Liberdade, which is really fascinating to me.
That clash of cultures sounds supremely interesting to me, and something that I didn't even think would exist. I'll come back to that, but now I'm going to hop over to Frogge's game called Akane, if I got that correctly. Akane?
I don't know how to pronounce it, man. You just pronounce it however you want.
Akane.
Yeah, I pronounce it. Yeah, I pronounce it as a cane, but I don't really know myself. I am a fake.
Yeah. Which I played an early version of and am excited to see revamped. And when it comes to a synopsis, I unfortunately have nothing because there's nothing online at the moment because you took things down. Since you have no online presence for Akane at the moment, or Akane, what is it about, Frogge? What would you like to tell us?
It's a hard story to define because at its surface, it's an extremely cliche story about this girl who wakes up one night to find that in her huge mansion, her parents have gone missing and that there's something strange terrorizing her across the mansion. But at its core, that's all I kind of want to spoil because it's basically a story you've seen before. Framed in a different light. It takes a bit of a turn. It's presented as a bit of a mystery throughout. There's a unique turn, not really a unique turn, but like something unoriginal presented a little differently. It's completely different from the original. It's very, very highly rewritten. I would say like 90% different. It's going to be about politics a little bit, and it's going to be about the fear of growing up, essentially. Those are the two main themes that are going to be driving it, and yeah, I look forward to sharing it with everyone once I have more information on it myself.
Exciting!
Yeah, that's really exciting. Joseph, it seems like in Records of Blue, you're mixing together the 3D dungeon RPG gameplay and side-scrolling parts for the town things. What made you do that? And also, what are the strengths and difficulties you find in using these perspectives?
Yes, the difficulties, most of the difficulties come down to the graphics because it's very difficult to make the 3D environments, but I'm working with an amazing programmer, which is Heidekichi, and he managed to just make everything work so smoothly. He made this system where the sprites always stop at the right moment and transition into the idle frame in a way that's so smooth, and he's putting so much love and care into making everything work in the right way. I pretty much feel like everything we want to do is possible, and he can make everything work. So the difficulties pretty much come down to graphics, and making pre-rendered graphics is tough, and I don't have a very good machine. I need a better graphics card for that matter, and I don't even know how to use Blender cycles. I use Blender internal render, which is outdated. That's a difficult point, and there's so much heavy visual work going within the game. We on our first weeks of development, we've outlined everything from beginning to end, and we've discussed so much, and everything is there. But just making the assets is very time consuming. But hopefully, it'll shine through, and it'll be worth it.
Yeah, incredible. I remember when with VX Ace, it was almost a dream to make a 3D game, or was like, but like. Some crazy person, some crazy awesome person has like created a 3D dungeon crawling script within the engine, and it's just like
yes,
it's
MGC.
It's incredible that a game is actually using it for something, for a big project, because I don't think many have used it yet. Now with Frogge, Akane or Akanye, the original was almost like a visual novel of sorts. Is that still the gameplay that's in it?
Yeah, it's pretty much non-gameplay at all. It's like take out even like the puzzles that the usual RPG Maker game has, or like even the little interactions. It's mostly very, very largely dialogue driven, and it's just mostly the only gameplay you're going to be seeing is going to be walking from one cutscene to the other. So. But that's definitely something I've embraced. I want to present it as more of a story than a game. And basically everything I make now has become more of a movie than a game, so it kind of follows that formula as well.
Well, yeah, because games like It Moves have had massive success of very linear games. Akane was one of your first games finished, and now you're coming back to it. What inspired you to come back to it?
What inspired me? I was sitting at the bookstore that I was working at one day, and I was just like, I was thinking about it. I don't know why it came up. I think I was just watching a Let's Play of some other game, and it reminded me of Akane maybe, and then I was like, hey, maybe I'll go watch a Let's Play of this, remember how it was, and then as I was watching that Let's Play, I realized I had a really good idea for a remake. I mean, not like an amazing idea, but it was like, yes, I finally found what I want to turn this story into. I finally found how I want to fix the rather bland and unoriginal OG story of the previous version, and I wanted to frame it in a completely different light, and I got inspired to go back to it after coming up with that concept, and I wanted to introduce that concept. I think it's not the most original concept, but I think it's one that's not been done in RPG horror that much, so I'm very passionate about it, to be honest.
This is for both of you. What are you most proud of about your games?
Visuals. I like my lighting effects. I think I've improved a lot over the years, so I'm pretty proud of that.
Nothing better than having a game with a RPG Maker game with a solid ray beams of light just
I mean that was the case
over everything.
I'm so proud of myself for being able to abandon that light ray kind of cliche. And I've also decided that the original game was so dark, so dark, you couldn't see anything at all, which you probably remember. In this version, there's little to no darkness. It's very well lit, and I think I'm proud of that progress.
I would generally I immediately go to graphics, but this time around it ain't the graphics. It is because it is the setup that I made with Haydock Cheese is just so. I'm so passionate about it. I'm so happy that we're making something that is merging these worlds together and is delivering what hopefully will be a new experience. Yeah, I'm very excited about this.
To finish us off, what are your future plans? Release dates for demos or full versions? When can we play it? Or where can we follow you?
Well, a vacation is definitely my future plan. Well, you can go first.
I don't plan to release a demo at all because it's going to be a short game. It's not going to be more than 2 hours at the longest. I'm thinking an hour probably, maybe even shorter, but I don't plan to release a demo. I'm hoping to get the full thing done next year, and not really. I would say you can just keep up with me on RPG Maker Net, and I will upload it there eventually. And I think that's going to be the best place to keep up with it. But for the time being, it's in very early stages, and I hope that if you're interested, you'll someday be able to stumble upon it. I just want to say.
Yes, and you can follow Frogge at FroggeDev on Twitter.
Yep.
the tweet beast. How?
Yeah, so I was not really. I was kidding about the vacation. It was trying to be a punchline, but
It was. No, I'm leaving it in.
So, yeah, I intend to release this. I don't know if I should speak publicly, but yeah, probably around late next year, because we've been working on it for over 6 months already, but it's surprisingly early on. When you're starting on a game that has so much custom stuff as our game has, especially when it comes to scripting, not so much on the graphic side, the initial stage is very slow. Like I said, we're nearing our first prototype very shortly, very soon, and that will speed up our progress. But yeah, I think we are aiming for a late 2020 release. And I have some other projects I've been working on, but it's mostly asset packs. I'm working on an asset pack with a friend, and I hope you look forward to my asset pack so you can use in your own commercial games, and they help me a lot, and I hope I can help you a lot to make nicer stuff. And I have a few side projects that I'm sporadically working on. I have uploaded one to RMN rather recently, which is Full Frontal Saga, because it's frontal. It's a frontal battle system. So, and I was intending to release it 38 days ago, and I didn't. But and it's surprisingly difficult to finish because it's just one single dungeon. The whole project is one single dungeon, but I keep going back and removing bugs and working on things, and I'm just frustrated with how it's going, so I haven't released it yet. But yeah, I was hoping to release some sporadic battle system prototypes, because I love making battle systems on RM2K3. But yeah, Records in Blue is my one true thing that you're gonna see no matter what, that we are working on painstakingly, and it's gonna come out, and I hope you guys are gonna enjoy it.
Awesome. And you can follow JosephSeraph on Twitter at JosephSeraph.
Yay!
Yes, and if you I don't know if there's any way, but if you want to support Joseph or Frogge, you can send Frogge some Fallout Boy merch. No, just kidding.
You can do that. I would appreciate that if you do that.
Send Joseph some perfume stuff. No.
Yay!
Fan art. But you guys want to advertise anything else?
Not really. Just I hope you look forward to our asset packs too. I want to make stuff that the community wants, so I'm working on a pixel art asset pack at the moment, which there are some and they're great, but people have been requesting me to make pixel art asset packs, so hopefully that will be of use to you. And how about you, Frogge?
If you want to support me, please do go buy my merch. We just released a new t-shirt at teespring.frogge.com. I'm kidding, I don't really have any merch as if. But
that was so convincing.
I'm glad it was convincing because it was pretty much just made up on the spot. But I hope you guys will look forward to my projects. Mostly going to be games, but yeah, I don't really have anything else to advertise beyond that.
Yeah, and when they come, nominate them for missiles and give them good reviews. Even if you don't like it, still give them good reviews.
Hell yeah.
Well, that's our podcast. This has been RPG Maker Cola. Thank you so much for listening, and thank you to our guests, JosephSeraph and Frogge, for joining us. It's been an absolute blast to have you on board, and thank you for your invaluable input.
Thank you. It was a lot of fun.
Thank you so much for your invitation. It was great indeed being here with you too. And I finally got to hear your voice. Huh.
Yeah, this is the most fun I've ever had in my entire life.
Now we're going to let Frogge sleep, have a good night's sleep, because it's probably around 11 p.m. where he is right now. So we're going to sign off. Goodbye, everybody.
Also, it's actually midnight. Bye.
Goodbye, everyone. Bye-bye. See y'all. Yeah, okay, so we're done with the recording. Can I turn it off?